So today I want to talk about celebrating small victories. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Stein, and today we're talking about celebrating small victories. Now, I recently have been thinking along the lines of what has been put out in social media within the music industry world for many independent artists, and a lot of the, I guess you could say, the information that is put out by people supposedly in the know about the music industry often comes with ulterior motives. And this is what I mean. You might see a sponsored ad or some particular person, maybe an influencer, talking about the need for promotion, the need for marketing, and how important and essential it is. And that's true. But if you're hearing that from a marketer, you know that they're trying to sell you a service. If someone's trying to sell you beats, for example, it's really important to view what they say through a, not necessarily a skeptical perspective, but with some discernment. And oftentimes when I'm on social media, I can kind of get sucked into this kind of dream, or what I guess you could say, like this massive success end goal with music or art or whatever you may create, right? Maybe. And it's easy to think that one is only successful, or one is only reaching their goal if they are at the kind of apex or the top of the food chain. And I know deep down that this isn't true. I know that I don't believe that if I was really pressed on it. But sometimes I think that way. So what does that have to do with celebrating small victories? Well, let me just give you some examples. If you're just starting out, let's say you just started to make music, or let's say you've made music for a long time, but you've kind of stepped away from it, and maybe you, for whatever reason, you stopped. You weren't sure about where you should go in your direction, or maybe you put some music out and you didn't get much traction. Or maybe you're just starting and you're not really sure what you should do. I personally, for example, recently put out two albums this year, in different genres, with two totally different kind of paths or lanes, and it was kind of discouraging. And I think for a lot of us, we have expectations based on what we see on the medias and the different outlets online that tell us that, in order to be successful, you need to be on the radio, you need people to know who you are, you need to be on MTV and be on the billboards. And I think a lot of our friends think that way, a lot of our friends and family think that way, and it can make us feel like belittled if you tell somebody maybe at work that you make music and they're like, oh, I haven't heard your music on the radio, or you don't have 1 million followers on social media, so you must not be important. Whereas you may have 1,000 followers on social media and you may never be on the radio, but you may make 20 or 30 grand off streams, right? This is completely normal. Millions of people do this. But my point is this: whatever your case may be, whatever your scenario may be, celebrate small victories. Instead of me putting my albums out and being discouraged that they didn't go platinum, I should celebrate the fact that I finished the album, or that 5 people listened to it, 10 people, or 100 people listened to it. If I put out merch on my website and I sell some t-shirts, I should celebrate that. It's better than none. It's more than what I sold last year, right? If you put out an album, that's one more album that you put out that you might not have put out if you just decided that it wasn't worth it because you believed someone on social media or your grandmother or someone that told you that it wasn't worth doing. It's really, really important to celebrate the small victories. And that being said, it's really important to not sweat the small setbacks. You see, I kind of view music as a necessity. This is something that I have to do. This is something that I think about. This is something that not just the repercussions or what music might bring to me, but what it already brings to me, and which is happiness. It brings me joy. I love to write. I love to play. So why, if that's true, do I get caught up in kind of the rat race or the competition or looking at other people who I don't think are as good as me or as talented or whatever I'm thinking of in my ego, and looking at them and being jealous of them as if their life or their career or their fan base had anything to do with me or mine? When we get into the comparison game and look to other people to determine our success, we will not celebrate the small victories. When we look at other people and become jealous or try to tear them down because they have what we don't have, we will not celebrate the small victories. That only leaves the option for us to be happy, quote unquote, when we think that we're successful as the biggest people that we see on television. And that's a big vulnerability, and I've started to see it in my own life at times, not always. I'm getting pretty good at recognizing where I fall short and quickly adjusting. I'm really curious about what you think about this, because if we celebrate the small victories, then that's a direct implication of our perspective. The opposite is true. If we don't celebrate the small victories, we only think that the big victories are worth celebrating. But on the flip side, if we celebrate small victories and we recognize every step, every improvement, every time we discover a new instrument or a new way of recording, or maybe, you saved some money and upgraded your microphone, those are steps. Those are steps along the way that are getting you to where you want to be and where I want to be personally. And I can look back over the last couple of years, just when I started making YouTube videos or a podcast, or just started recording for real from home. I look back on that stuff and I realized that at the time, I remember what I was thinking when I made that, or when I made a song, and I can go back and listen to it just 2 years ago and be like, oh my gosh, I have improved so much. I used to think this was my best song, and it's the 60th file down from the bottom of songs that I would like to release. I wish that along the way I was more mindful of my improvement. Instead of waiting years and years and years and looking back and saying, "Oh wow, I'm celebrating how far I've come." It's so much more healthy to do it as you go, to see and be mindful of the change. And I know it's difficult to look back 2 weeks or a week or yesterday and see how much you've changed, because just like a tree, you don't see it grow. And oftentimes, hindsight's 20/20. When you look back 2 years, it's easy to see the change. But when you notice, here's the punchline. When you notice or are aware of something positive that's happening in relation to what you make or what you're doing, or maybe it's your job, maybe it's at work, whatever. It doesn't have to be about music. When I realize that something significant or even small has happened that's in my favor, that I feel is a big deal, or at least is important to me, or at least shows some level of improvement, or at least show that this is a step forward, I'm going to celebrate it. And that doesn't mean I'm going to go out and go to Tahiti for a week, or buy a couple bottles of Dom and make it rain, but I'm going to celebrate. in some small token, in some responsible way, I'm going to acknowledge what happened and reflect on it in a positive way. What do you think about this? Do you have a hard time celebrating your small victories? Do you have the mentality that it's only superstardom or bust? Do you believe, from what a lot of people who have no clue about making music, do you believe when they say, oh, if you're not this, or this, then you must not be something or worth it? You haven't made it if you haven't cracked the Billboard 100. I'd be interested to know what you think about this, your own personal experience with maybe setbacks or not being able to celebrate because you think that it's not big enough, or the jump or the progress hasn't been enough. Let me know in the comments. I'd also appreciate it if you followed or subscribed to the YouTube channel. If this is helpful, pass it on. I'd really appreciate that too. That'd mean a lot to me. As always, I appreciate you watching. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again next time.